Hello, I am Pam in the Adult Services area of your library. This creative makerspace is all about relaxing and having fun while creating a collage. We're going to use the summer reading theme of Imagine Your Story. This is one of my favorite things to do. Well, two favorite things because I love imagining my story in writing and I love to create a collage. Among a number of various kinds of journals that I have and use, one is dedicated solely to collage. So I do have a collage journal that is quite fun. I have led many workshops that involve collage, and it's so fun to see the various expressions and creations that evolve. I look forward to seeing some of yours, so please take a photo when you complete it and post using hashtag JCPLSRP. That all stands for Johnson City Public Library Summer Reading Program 2020. So it's hashtag JCPLSRP 2020. Let's get started by understanding what collage is and the basic steps involved. So I am going to put up those steps. Collage, the word, is actually from French coller, and pardon me because I am not a French-speaking person, never took the language, but it does mean to glue or to stick together. And collage itself refers to both the technique or process and the artwork that is created by gathering, arranging, and assembling images and various materials onto a single surface. I want to highlight here the basic steps in collage, and then I will dive more deeply into each step as we go through the full process. The first step is to choose the surface that you will be using for your collage. The surface size will matter in how many images you need to collect and the size of them as you gather. That is not to say you can't change your mind. You can maybe end up gathering a lot more images or a lot fewer images than you thought, or larger ones or smaller ones, and you can change the surface you choose to accommodate if you have something else available to use. Weight of the surface matters too, especially if you decide to add other items that are heavier than paper, like buttons, for example, one of my favorites, or other doodads. Plus, the gluing process adds moisture, causing more wrinkling if your surface is lightweight, so you want a surface heavier than regular paper. Choosing from things you likely can find around the house, and I will show examples of those as we begin the process in a moment. The second step is to collect your images and the possible other materials you wish to use. So do have a pair of scissors handy. You'll choose and gather images, designs, text if you want, various papers, other items. It's your choice. You'll cut and tear and set them aside for later. And I'll speak much more about this step too in just a bit. The third step is the layout. When you're done collecting, you will play with your layout and arrangement of materials and decide how you want to put them together to form your collage. Then, fourth is to glue down your layout on your chosen surface. You'll probably use a glue stick for lighter weight papers or liquid glue for something heavier, like using Elmer's. And when you're finished, you can add a coat of Mod Podge or gel medium overall if you have it. And last is to admire your creation and do take that photo. In collaging, often a theme is chosen for creating your collage, and sometimes it evolves through your image and item search. As noted though, for this particular collage creation, our theme is tied to our summer reading theme. Once again, imagine your story. And that includes fantasy, fairy tales, and myths, and your imagination. Collaging from home, you will likely find a variety of items to use as you look around your house. To get you started, I'm going to show you some ideas and examples. One of the most commonly used things are magazines. See if you have some old magazines around the house. Being a collage person, I have lots of magazines. Don't judge the book by the cover, as they say, because there are all kinds of interesting things inside. You never know what you will find. Another thing is decorative papers like these, and I'm very interested in using this one right now. It's drawing my eye. But if you use scrapbooking, you might have these, or different projects, you might have some of a variety of decorative papers. Also, you can use some wrapping paper. Maybe you have some old scraps. Here's a Harry Potter one. Just whatever you can find, and even tissue paper is another example of something to use. Also, fun thing are calendars. Old calendars have some interesting, I love this snowman in here, but there's all kinds of interesting things. Again, you never know what you'll find. Here's another calendar. And often the calendars, here's one from Italy, have smaller pictures. They have the large picture inside and then smaller versions of those pictures. So there's a lot potential there. Another possibility is wallpaper, old scraps, or if you had somebody who had samples. I found some fairy ones, which was so fun. I've used in a collage. So look around and see what you can find there. Another common, very common thing to have around the house are old, and I'm going to switch this out, greeting cards, right? Lots of those. And see if you can find something fun and interesting there. These kind of grabbed my eye just in the moment. A little note card, greeting cards, maybe an old like postcard. Someone gave me that, so fun. Another thing you can do, of course, is to just find some images on your computer if you have a printer and print out some images like I did there earlier for something. You might even use, if you have some interesting decorative napkins, which I don't have any particularly interesting ones right now, but those can also be used, along with just different types of papers. Again, I found a piece of burlap, which could be interesting somewhere, even some cloth to create some texture. You can even, if you get kind of stuck, maybe even use some product packaging. Like this Kleenex box has an interesting pattern here that you could cut out. So look around, see what you can come up with. There's really unlimited ideas. I wanted to mention one other item I forgot as far as some ideas for images. You might have a book that you don't mind to take some of the images out. And this is a very interesting one I saw. So images from a book that you don't mind to use up. And further things that you might end up or not wanting to add could be things like pastel chalk in the background on your paper, some types of paint from watercolor, acrylic, whatever else you have. Perhaps some glitter glue, and I'll show you where I used that on some fairy tale wings in one of my collages. Stamps are always fun, stamp pad. I love buttons, I may have mentioned that. So here is a bag of buttons to choose from. You have the standard colored pencils, which are great. You could use markers. I also, as you've probably heard me use a catch-all category called doodads, where you can use various found objects. I keep a box of such things that have like stick-on little pearl items, glittery things, and yes, some sticker kind of things. Here's a fun little owl. and just whatever you find. Here's a little foam star, which can be fun. Just items that you might find around your home that you've kept for some reason. I don't know if I forgot anything else. I do want to mention the washi tape, which is so great if you've ever used this before, because you just tape it down and it's there. All you have to do is trim it, the end of it, however much you want to use. So all kinds of fun things to use to add, to embellish. And I mentioned the cloth. Perhaps these things create texture and interest and depth. So it's just fun to choose. So let's get started making a collage. Foremost, I invite you to stay open while creating your collage. And most importantly, this means, although you keep the theme in mind, and we all know what that is now, imagination, fantasy, fairy tale, etc., clear all else from your mind. For my first collage on this theme, and this is that collage, I'm sorry if there's some lighting issue, I was thinking fairy tale castle. I don't know, it just stuck in my mind, but I did not go looking for an image of a castle. I wanted to come up with my own creation. So if you look around here, you're not going to see an image of a castle. You're going to see one that I put together with other pieces and parts. I didn't know how it would end up, but as I collected various images, a vision started to form. I actually found this. I thought, wow, that looks kind of like the outside of a castle could use. And it was just, I think, in a commercial maybe for jewelry or perfume. But it's just, I started envisioning it. Then this was definitely perfume ad. It had this gold glittery that I decided to use. And so it's just fun to see what starts coming into your mind. Get your creative juices flowing. I urge you to not go hunting for a particular image or let yourself get distracted while you're searching. You could get caught up in a specific search, and that just gets in your head and you miss out on interesting possibilities and things that just catch your eye no matter the reason. This little guy with this bigger mouse figure, I was just like, yes, that's who's living in my castle. So choose those things that just catch your eye. You may or may not find what you thought you might. Who cares? This is a time for self-expression, time to go with the flow and let it evolve. Let's start then at the beginning of the process, going back to our first step we talked about and choosing the surface for the collage. Remembering you can change it if you want to. Look at what you might have around the house. I want to give you again some ideas and examples of things that you may have already. One common thing is poster board. So if you have a piece of poster board, any piece of it, this is a half size. That's a common thing. If you happen to have cardstock, the heavier weight paper, that is a good thing to use. Again, this depends on size and what you want to put on it. Perhaps you have watercolor paper if you like to play with watercolors. That's a very nice thick weight, 90-pound weight paper that would do. You could also, like if you have some kind of a tablet, even a legal pad or any kind of paper tablet, you can use this back piece that's cardboard or cardboard from a box of different size, or you can use the whole box if you want, depending on what you like to envision. There's also, of course, if you want to cut off the back of a larger box. And you could also, speaking of boxes, use a cigar box if you have one of those around. Those are quite fun, and you can collage inside, outside, however you wish. Another thing you can use is manila folder. A lot of people have these around the house, and I did use one where I cut this off and used, or you can open it out for a bigger piece. Also, if you have an old book that you don't mind to use to collage on the cover of the book, you can use front, back, inside, whatever you want to do. You might have canvas board. This is a small sized canvas board that you could use. I was excited to find this today. I had a piece of wood. Wow, and I love the size and shape of that wood. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything else I dug up as I took my look around. One thing I think I want to mention is, in case you get really stuck, maybe a box of cereal. You can cut out the cardboard there and, of course, put the insides into a sealable bag. You might have a cracker box like that too. And you might also like to do a series of small, collages. And this is just sort of some old map board that I had cut apart. So lots of ideas. Again, take a look around, see what you find, and make your choice. Our second step then is to begin our collection of images. Let the feeling of what you see guide you. Grab it if it resonates with you in some way. Don't judge your desires, why you wanted something. Again, try to stay out of your head, go with your gut. You may find something that seems fun, mysterious, weird, whimsical, whatever. Just go with that feeling. If you want to have it in the moment, take it. I had no idea why I chose in this particular one. I think I was thinking weird because these are not probably traditional images I might normally choose, but I had so much fun, like somehow weirdness in the country setting or something, but just was drawn to these images, and it doesn't matter. It was just fun. Often we're drawn to images by their color or their design way beyond what they actually portray. You might just like a piece of it or something. Sometimes it's just like an essence of something. So treat this search like a treasure hunt. Often you're not going to use everything you gather when it comes to the layout step, but include everything up front so you have those choices and you can decide later what to use or not to use as you start putting it all together. So as you start to collect your images, and I've decided to use this particular surface today. It's a heavyweight. It's a piece out of a mixed media journal, so it's like a 98-pound surface. Although I am quite drawn to using the book, so again, I might switch, right? Because we can do that. I'm going to lay that there and think about it. So as you collect images, and I tend to start with magazines, but there are a lot of things I look through. As you go through and you're looking and just thinking about imagination, fantasy, and fun, and something that you might like to have. Maybe you find this bird interesting. So you can cut out just a piece of something that you want and set it aside, decide what you're going to do with it later. Maybe you want some of the birds in the sky. Just, whatever it is that you are drawn to, go ahead and pull it out. I think these are interesting. It's called Dinner in Bloom, but I might want any piece or part of that. So sometimes you tear out the whole page, and sometimes you cut out a piece of what you want. I do want to mention that, for example, in this magazine called Reminisce, I'm not a Star Trekky person, but I know there are those who enjoy that particular show to a great degree. I have a few friends that do. So if you want to cut out this image, I do want to recommend double check the back of the page to see if, just in case, there might be something better that you want there instead, okay? And I don't know, not being a Star Trek person, which I'd want better, but I am drawn to this particular one. So I think I'm just going to tear this image out. That might be interesting too, other things. So much fun to collect your images. So as you are doing that, tearing and cutting, and again, I wanted to go back to one of my greeting cards. I really like these leaves and might use that. And it has this nice gold edging, which could come in handy. I don't know what for yet, but I'm going to keep that. So stack them together as you go through. These are some I've been collecting. I also found some fun little pieces. Sorry, I got those upside down for you, that I think are really cool to use and might want to use this. So I just have this stack. They're all whipper-jawed. I haven't decided how I'm going to use them yet. That's going to come in the next step, which will be the layout process. So I do, want you to just have lots of choices. You never know, and just really get your creative juices going. And then we'll decide what we want to do with them. Now for the next third fun step, layout. So take out your surface and start to arrange what you have gathered, your images, your text, your other papers, materials that you're going to use or play with and decide to use. This is when your unique creative genius really comes out to play, when your vision starts to form into your art piece. So have fun. There's no rules. You don't even have to stay within the edges. Just like on this one, my fairy is off the edge because she's just flying in and over that castle. So you can decide if you want to have a background, if you want to perhaps use different papers and designs, or maybe even use, as I mentioned, pastel. I did on this, my fairy cat mother, I did use the pastel. I love that you can make this really misty, fun, blended colors. And so I put that in the background, as I had decided that is what I would do based on what I had found. So that's your time to decide. I think I mentioned I really like this decorative paper, so somehow I'm going to include it in my background and kind of play with that. Here's another example of a collage where I had done a lot of background with decorative papers. It just kind of fit the mood. Just play with it and have fun with it. Maybe you want to do some watercolor background, or maybe you just want the surface background, and I'd often do that. So you can cut images out in their own shape, or you can cut different shapes. So for example, this crazy fun lizard-like creature that looks like you could ride it, you can decide maybe you just want to cut around it, or maybe you actually want to get really close in and cut what this looks like. I'm not going to do the whole thing here right now, but sometimes it's really fun to decide how you want to present your images, and that will make a difference in what you create. So I will go back to this one where I did cut out the tulip and made that a focus. So you also might want to cut, as I cut this one, you might want to cut rectangles. You might want to just cut around the edges. I've kind of like curved the edges of that one. Often I tear. I don't know that I particularly want to use this image, but you can just tear around if that's something that you like, that look, and for some reason you think it fits, then go ahead and tear instead of cutting, right? I like a variety, so I often do some of each. You might want to take some of your, excuse me, of your text. And I love that this says it's all about freedom of expression. Quite drawn to that. So I'll probably just cut this to where you can read that easily. I don't know how I will use that or where or if I will. So you can cut things however you want. You know, you can square things off, or you can also take, for example, if you found something like I did here that's rounded, these funny little monkeys in a tree, I kind of think that would be nice to keep the roundness. You could cut it out as a square or go ahead and cut around it and have a round piece. Toss aside. So as you lay out, you can decide, am I going to leave space in between images, or do I want to keep layering everything? That's for you to decide. You can layer things or not layer things, leave space, not leave space, angle, turn them at an angle, upside down, however you want. And then you can add other embellishments or not. It's all yours to decide, which is the fun of it. And so another thing I want to mention at this point is the embellishments. So I'm going to go back to my fairy cat mother is what this is. I love buttons. As I told you, these are buttons. These are flower buttons. So I added those. This is actually glitter foam piece that I have. Even though I'm not fond of foam, it seemed to fit for this particular collage. Also, going back again to this tulip collage, which was not the theme, but one I had done earlier, it does have buttons. But you can add a stamp to it if you want. You could decide that I might want to put like a heart stamp here. It might fit in there. It's your time to decide all these interesting and fun things. So, you know, maybe you want to put some of those shiny items. Oh, that is what is, speaking of shiny, you do have the option, like this is glitter glue. I don't know if you can see, I'm trying to get on the wings that I added glitter glue. Maybe you can see the shininess or not, I don't know. But it was fun and I can see it in the end. So that's all your choices. So have great fun with it. I love finding images. I love dragons are really fun for me. I just found some really cool images and I'm going to decide what I want to use or not use. I have way too many. But as you do that, as you move things around and decide how you want them, and I think I might even go bigger, that's your decision. So have fun with that, and we'll come back to a moment and talk about the next step. So after you've decided your layout, then you glue. And you might use glue stick, Elmer's glue. Again, glue sticks best for lightweight papers. I can use, like this is not too heavy, I could use a glue stick there. If I were to go back to using, for example, the surface of my book, here is one I've done before on a book, as you can see. It's a front and back. I did a collage there. I would put glue down first, Elmer's glue, liquid glue, because the glue stick would not hold well on a heavier surface, ridged surface like that. So it's important to make that choice and be aware of that. Another thing that's very important is to glue all the edges so you make sure everything's down well. So I'm going to take a glue stick, and these are the kind that dry clear, so it doesn't matter. And I'm going to use this piece of scrap paper to make sure I can get all the way to the edge and make it nice and covered. And then I usually just put a couple strokes in the middle. And I want this fun item glued right up to my edge. You have to, think through. I usually put my layout just the way I want it, to the side, over to the side of my work area, and then decide what needs, if there's something that needs to go first that's underneath another item, you have to think that through. So I do try to press out to all the corners, and this is maybe a little heavier, so I'm going to hold it down just for a moment. The other thing, if you do need to use liquid glue, you can take a little paper plate. I have an old brush that I use just for gluing. Take your Elmer's glue, your liquid glue. You can open it up, pour some out. Don't need a whole lot, depending on how much you're gluing. I'm going to set that aside. And I'm going to use this a little, and this is a heavier, so I really do want to use my liquid glue on this. And I'm going to, again, make sure I cover all the corners, cover it well, so it's going to hold down really well. And I'm putting this fun little owl up here in the corner. And I usually will hold it down. Again, like I said, something heavier. I want to make sure it's going to stick well. You can decide to put the glue onto your surface first, which is something I would do in making, and I think I did all the way through in gluing onto the book a heavier surface. So if I were to switch over, and I will at some point, collage on that book, I would use gluing on the surface first. And let's just take this fun little, I don't know if you can see it, it is a little mouse or rat. And sometimes when you have a small item, or I do this, you do what's best for you. I just put it across because it's too hard to control. I just put it across, run it across the glue stick. And then put it down. So where I want to put it, I don't know. I'm going to put it down here for now. So when you're done with your gluing, definitely just a reminder to wash your paintbrush in warm soapy water so you can use it again. Whatever glue approach depends on the kinds of things that I've discussed as far as weight. And if you're gluing an item that, like the buttons here, I most definitely, on this one, I most definitely use liquid Elmer's and painted the back of that to make sure it would stay well and let it dry. So it just depends, and this was heavier also. Just depends. So these are always your choices. Now, when you get your gluing done, and I will not go through a whole collage thing with you, that completing my collage here, because that would take quite a long time. But when you do get your gluing done, and I'll take this, bring this back in again to show you. Let me move this away. You might wish to outline a piece of something that you want to bring forward or make more of a 3D effect and depth, more distinct in the overall art piece. And you can kind of determine that as you look at your collage. I felt like I needed to outline some of the things here to really make them distinct. I did go all the way around the outside of my cat mother, fairy cat mother, or fairy cat. And often I use my black colored pencil or a dark colored pencil, because you do want it to pop out. So you want to put the darker color around. You might use a thin marker, whatever you have. I also have some kind of paint markers that are possible to use. I feel a little more in control with this one. So I just simply make sure it's nice and sharp. And I simply just, like I said, go around the edge slowly so I don't zoom off into the places I didn't want to go. And you can see, even on that, you can see that it starts to bring that out and more. You might do, I mean, I've done it a couple times. So after your gluing is done and your piece is kind of, everything's where you want, that's when you can kind of determine to do something like that. It's up to you. I also drew on a cat face. This is another, again, back to this one. You can probably see where I did use a black outline for the tulip to really bring it forward. Again, that's totally your decision. The last thing, once you've glued and everything's set and you've added the embellishments or not, whatever you wanted to do and outlined, the very last thing is to finish it. If you have available to you Mod Podge or gel medium, which I do not have right now, you pour that out again, just like with your gluing. You can pour that out onto a small paper plate. I have Mod Podge that is a gloss finish or Mod Podge that is a matte finish. So whether you like it shiny or just a nice finish, you can choose. So again, I'm going to choose to cover my cat fairy. I have not done that yet, with a coating of, or get it started with a coating of the matte Mod Podge. So I'm going to pour some out. And you just want a thin layer, but you are going to cover your entire surface. This will keep it well glued. It provides that finish, as I mentioned, and a very good protectorant. So it's all those kinds of things. So don't be afraid to just go right over everything on your page, because it's going to dry clear and it's going to help hold everything in place. And just like I said, a thin coating, but complete it all over your page. And then you will let it dry, and it doesn't take really a long time to dry. And you'll have your finished item. So that's it. Collaging is so much fun. I hope you enjoy it. I do look forward to seeing your completed imaginative collages. Remember, feel free to take a photo and share them at #JCPL SRP 2020. Have fun.